Viewer beware.
I scare you? Well, I'm sorry about that, but it goes with today's theme. Welcome back to Viewer Beware, the only series where we go over each and every episode of the Goosebumps TV show. And today we are watching You Can't Scare Me. And You Can't Scare Me is a bit of a special case because I'm not really interested in providing the traditional Goosebumps scares as much as it is kind of a series of failed pranks. So, the book that this is based on is actually just kind of normal schoolyard bullying that doesn't really go anywhere particularly scary until like the last few chapters. And while that's fine for a book or a movie, we got 20 minutes to fill, so we need to get right into the action. And it doesn't do it very well, but the episode does rearrange some things from the book to kind of make it flow a little bit better for TV. So, You Can't Scare Me. It's about a teacher's pet that's an overachiever with two jealous boys that want to knock her down a peg. Sure, we've seen it before, but have we seen it with mud monsters being talked to death? I don't think so. And so, with that, let's crack them open and roll this muddy footage. Our episode starts in a spooky dooky mud pit with a grandpa and his granddaughter going for a swampy stroll. Seemingly on purpose, the granddaughter chucks her ball into a bog, causing grandpa to go fetch it. Unfortunately for him, it was a swamp infested with mudmen. Luckily for us, this is just Courtney's school presentation about the mud monster of Muddy Creek, a pretty weakly titled local legend. Courtney goes on to explain how unafraid of the story she is and how it's for little babies. This enrages our two class troublemakers, Eddie and Hat. That's right, he's a boy named Hat, presumably because he wears a hat.
Eddie, do you have something you'd like to say to the class?
No.
Then please be quiet.
Courtney goes on to explain that monsters are a coping mechanism for how scary the real world is, further infuriating Eddie and Hat.
She talks like a book.
But of course, monsters only exist in our imagination.
And to be honest, I kind of understand it. Courtney is way condescending. She's even talking down to her teacher.
See, if I had proof, we wouldn't be having this little discussion.
You've got a point there, Courtney.
I know.
While Courtney verbally degrades a grown woman, Eddie and Hat sneak a snake into her lunch to scare her. Unfortunately, Courtney decides to share her lunch of smoked salmon with a teacher.
But it's smoked salmon with cream cheese.
Smoked salmon?
And he grabs the snake and immediately tosses it at a student. Hilarious. Courtney calmly grabs the snake, commenting that it's a harmless corn snake, immediately recognizing it was done by Eddie and Hat. The next day at school, Courtney is talking about how computers are so simple even a caveman can use them, then immediately called out Eddie as he wasn't able to finish his report due to it being stuck on the computer. This pisses Eddie off so bad that he and Hat go off to get some payback with the class tarantula. Similar to the snake gag, I imagine they're going to plant it on her somewhere. Eddie and Hat are forced to hide when Courtney and the science teacher walk in the room. The teacher exclaims Courtney doesn't even need extra credit because she already has an A+. And Courtney says they can invent a higher grade.
Yeah, but I was hoping I can get something higher.
There is no such thing.
You sure? We're in science class. We can invent one.
I hate her.
While hiding in the closet, the spider gets loose and crawls on Eddie, giving him a panic attack. But they are saved by Courtney, who explains the tarantula is harmless. The next day, it's shown that Courtney's report was published in the newspaper, to which she explains she wrote it because the story scared her at first and she wanted to get over it. Using this as ammo, Eddie and Hat decide to invite Courtney out to Muddy Creek to jump scare her.
You two don't ever give up, do you?
See, I told you she was afraid of mud monsters.
No. I'll be there.
The actress that played Courtney actually claims that most of the mud used in these mud monster scenes was chocolate McDonald's milkshakes, which seems much more expensive than just mud itself, but I don't direct children's TV shows. Anyways, the boys lay their trap with Eddie in costume. Hat goes out to look for Courtney to bring her to the scare zone. But while searching, he stumbles upon the real-life Mudman.
Eddie?
Hat runs for his life to Eddie and tries to get him to run off as well, which is a total bro move. Can't leave a man behind.
Hey, it's just me, Eddie.
Eddie, listen to me. There's a real mud monster out there.
There's no such thing.
I'm not kidding. We gotta move.
Look, there's no such thing.
But while Hat explains the monster sighting, Courtney shows up and goes full yap sesh on him about how she's so much smarter than them and how pathetic they are.
Here we have two adolescents of average or below intelligence, trying to outwit an adolescent of much higher than average intelligence. I'm not bragging, I'm just stating the facts.
Luckily, the mud monster interrupts her and it's time to get some mud stomping action, right?
Don't interrupt. I can feel your anger.
Wrong. Courtney continues her lengthy yap fest until the mud monster completely dries up in the sun. She has talked the monster to death.
Are you even listening to me?
Later on, we see tons of news crews show up to interview Courtney about the monster. Even the president called her about it. But she spends the whole time talking down to Eddie and Hat for being scared of a monster. This chick straight up sucks.
That's why saving the lives of two frightened little boys, Hat and Eddie, was something I had to do.
Oh, brother.
Eventually, the interviews are broken up by the rain rolling in, causing Courtney and the news to run off. Eddie and Hat vent their frustration at the monster for failing to scare Courtney before walking back to the street.
Shouldn't we get out of the rain? What for? Yeah.
I just gotta tell you, Eddie, life just isn't fair.
Oh, thanks, man.
So, we got one of those endings where the bad guy wins. But was Courtney really the bad guy? All she wanted to do was get more than an A+ in her schoolwork. And Eddie and Hat kind of tormented her first. Actually, in the book, Courtney kind of brings it on herself a little bit by, torturing Eddie and Hat back by throwing a handful of bees at them, which I don't know how you get a handful of bees to throw at somebody, but she did it, and she reveled in it. But that's missing in the episode, so it just kind of looks like two guys picking on a girl that's trying hard in school. And I'm sure she's kind of pompous, but I don't know. But I mean, she was kind of insufferable towards the end there when she was really talking them down on their IQ and then even bragging to the president. I mean, at the time, I think that was Bill Clinton. So she was bragging to Bill Clinton about how much she's more brave than Eddie and Hat. And I'm sure he knows who those guys are. They're on the presidential watch list, I think. Regardless of my feelings on Courtney, I'm not a big fan of the ending of this episode, where all the scariness of it was really taken away immediately by Courtney just kind of talking to the monster until it died. That's not scary. It's just a pile of mud. It's a pile of mud that happens to move, and you can just wait for the sun to come out and beat it. That's not... See, the book, they had the monsters as the spirits of townspeople that died in a flood, which is very frightening. That's sort of like that story in Trick or Treat. If you've never seen Trick or Treat, go watch Trick or Treat, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Also, I'm not a big fan of the general direction the whole story went. I mean, I kind of wanted Eddie and Hat to kind of get one over. At least one, at least a little bit, but no, they just got beat the entire time until they got chased by a mud monster, completely separate from everything going on with Courtney. So that's kind of a bummer. If they could have just come together and recognized, hey, we've done the worst we can and we still can't beat her. No, it's like they did the worst they could, and then she kind of like burned them with a cigarette by yakking to the president. I don't like it. Also, the monster wasn't scary. It was just a big man covered in chocolate milkshake, which, I mean, I guess if you saw that in person, it would be a little scary, but in the context of this episode, no, I don't get it. For that, I'm going to have to give it 1 bump out of 5 geese, and you can skip it. You're not going to miss anything. But thank you guys for watching. I'll be back next time with Viewer B. Let me get my mask. Where?
I'm not bragging, I'm just stating the facts.